You're watching Mountain Computers.
Hello everybody, and welcome to Mountain Computers. Today we're going to be taking a look at my new HP Envy 13M-AG001DX. Fairly certain I got that model number right after a couple tries here. But yeah, today we're going to be taking a look at my new 13-inch laptop. I say new because I've actually had this for a few months now and haven't gotten around to doing a video on it. But you will have, if you have seen a video that I did recently for my music production PC, recall that I briefly made an allusion to this as being a machine that I was using to record audio for that video. On that note, I apologize that I'm not recording audio off of my Blue Yeti for this video on account of the fact that the machine that I would normally be using to record audio is sitting here in front of us, so I can't exactly use it to record audio without having a cable sticking out of it looking fairly dumb. So, yeah, today we're going to take a look at this. I'm sorry I haven't had a video out in a little while. That's pretty much the typical thing for me, getting busy, and I typically try to put off doing anything with laptops at all anyway. As you probably noticed, I haven't ever done a laptop video before, at least that I recall, mostly due to the fact that I'm always worried that I'm going to forget something in the video, and today I just decided to take a look at this and say if I forget something, oh well, I'll just have to answer questions in the comments if there are any. So yeah, without further ado, let's start taking a look at this. So this is a 13-inch laptop from HP that came out, I don't know when, sometime last year, and I picked it up at a Best Buy in Montana when I was there visiting for the holidays. It has an AMD Ryzen 5 2500U processor with AMD Vega 8 integrated graphics. And the machine has 8 gigabytes of RAM, which is not upgradable. The amount of RAM is set and can never be changed, which is a little bit unfortunate due to the fact that it has this integrated graphics. Since integrated graphics will use your system memory to use as, GPU memory, you can't ever get more GPU memory to use on this, and you always have the amount of GPU memory that it's using being taken up by your system memory. So you have some limitations on the kind of stuff that you can run there, but other than that, as far as performance goes, it seems to be reasonably respectable, even in some kind of mid-end games if you turn the settings down a little bit. Why don't we get started by looking at the I/O here. On the left you'll find, or excuse me, on the right, on the left-hand side of the right side, you'll find a volume rocker, a USB Type-C port, which has this Thunderbolt port or icon, which I almost can definitely say is not for Thunderbolt, especially on account of the fact that the USB 3.1 Gen 1 port, there we go, trying to get that out, Type A port here also has the same symbol next to it. This symbol can also, on some laptops, mean that this port is enabled for charging, but once again, I don't think that that's what this is for, due to the fact that this port also has the symbol. HP, that's a poor use of this symbol, and I would recommend not using it, please. I'm pretty sure what this is intended to mean is that this can charge devices which are plugged into this port even when the power to the machine is shut off. So I think that's what both of these ports are capable of doing. A nice feature, would like to see a better symbol, something potentially more indicative of what's going on there on those two ports. So yeah, moving over we have the standard barrel jack charging port. And then if we flip the machine around, there are no ports on the back. There is another USB 3.1 Gen 1 Type A port there, trying to get it in good lighting there. You'll notice there's no lightning bolt on that one. Probably you can't charge off of that. Headphone jack, power button, vents for the CPU, and then a micro SD card slot on this side. If we move back to these vents over here, I will hopefully at this point now remember to say this machine's fan runs pretty often, even when you're just doing normal tasks, which is a little bit unfortunate. The fan's noise isn't too whiny, it's more of a dull hum, which is great unless it gets really wound up, which doesn't happen unless you're in, you know, fairly significant tasks, but HP is apparently not afraid of having this fan run almost all the time, even if it isn't going that fast most of the time. A little bit unfortunate, but at least it's doing a good job of cooling the CPU when it does that. So, yeah. Let's see. You can probably notice here that I've already managed to put a little bit of a dent in the top case. Overall, the machine is pretty durable, I would say. I've just managed to accidentally step on this a few times and managed to get a mark out of it one time, so yeah, unfortunately that is something that happened. Stylistically, I really like this machine. It's got a kind of... it's not quite black. There's a hint of brown to this color, which is probably really hard to see coming through on the camera in this lighting, but maybe I can manage to get a little bit of B-roll to show for you here that kind of more accurately portrays the color. You'll notice it's using the nice new HP logo that HP has been using on their Pavilion lineup now, or excuse me, not the Pavilions, the Spectre lineup for a little while. And apparently they are beginning to use that on the Envy line, which I was unaware of, but stylistically, overall, I think the machine is really nice looking. If we turn it over here, I will remember to talk about the fact that there are some vents on the back here too for intaking air, and the thing on the side there, other side, is an output, so it looks like there's lots of room for intaking air to keep this machine nice and cool. Even if you were to potentially have it set on your lap, it probably would get a little bit warm, but it's not going to be choked for air usually on account of the fact that they have so much intake here on the back. Storage on this machine by default I will talk about right now, because it involves opening up the backside here, which is a terrible, terrible pain. If you buy this laptop in the same configuration that I got it from the Best Buy in Montana, you probably will want to upgrade it, because it comes with all of 128 gigabytes of AHCI-based M.2 storage. And while that is a nice, fairly fast SSD, it's not exactly you know, workable if you're going to be using this machine for storing any reasonable amount of data for a few years, and you're going to wind up constantly having to erase stuff or have backup drives to plug into this to back up your extra data. So what I've done is gone ahead and upgraded this machine to a 500 gigabyte Samsung 750, I think, Evo NVMe SSD. Which has been a phenomenally great performance enhancer as far as in terms of getting the machine to be very, very snappy, especially on boot up. With, I think it boots up in all of about 7 seconds if you take out the amount of time that it takes for me to put in my BitLocker drive encryption password. But yeah, it's very phenomenal in that regard. But taking it apart to do that repair has caused some damage to the machine, unfortunately, and I think I can pretty safely place the blame for that on HP's poor use of parts for this. So you can probably see this screw here isn't quite all the way in, and that is on account of the fact that this Torx bit screw here, if I can focus on it, is pretty much completely stripped out, and this is not a result of me using the wrong tools. As you can see on this bit, there's quite a bit of stripping already going on that screw, and yeah, these aren't going to hold up very long. They're just poorly built screws, unfortunately, and they really wouldn't allow you to take this machine apart more than a couple times. And besides that, in order to get the machine opened up, you have to pry away this nice foot here on both the front and back sides of the machine to get at a few more Phillips screws that they've hidden underneath of those, which means if you aren't careful about how you treat the adhesive that adheres the foot to the actual bottom of the machine, you're going to be having a bad time of keeping this nice and even on here. I luckily managed to cause very minimal damage to that adhesive layer, but it is something that was a pain doing that. And then also, even once you've done all that, there is still the matter of prying up the back piece from plastic snaps that hold the entire back plate onto the rest of the machine. And as you can see here, I've managed to do some damage to the chassis of the machine by doing that prying as well. So overall, my attempt at managing to perform this upgrade didn't go over incredibly well, and that is a bit unfortunate for the condition of the machine. But I would argue, even though it is now cosmetically somewhat flawed, the performance enhancement that was gained by doing that has been quite beneficial for the machine overall's performance. What I'm trying to get at is that there was more gained by doing that than I had lost. So a worthwhile upgrade in my opinion. The speakers on this machine sit back here just behind the keyboard, and in my opinion actually sound pretty good for laptop speakers. The keyboard is rather nice in my opinion. I know Linus did a video on HP's latest, Linus from Linus Tech Tips, that is, did a video very recently. If that's even come out yet, I should check on that and make sure that this video goes out after that goes up, because I have a Floatplane subscription to him. In his video regarding the latest HP Spectre machines, made a few complaints about these nubs getting in the way of typing. In my opinion, I don't think that they actually do. I think that they're not a problem for the way that I type anyway, and that also the keyboard on this, which he remarked on as being rather brilliant, in that case I agree with him. I'm pretty sure they're using a very similar, if not the same, keyboard assembly on this machine as they decided to use on the Spectre series machine this year, and ultimately the key travel on this is really nice. The feel of the keys when you're pressing them is great. Spectacular job on the keyboard, HP, in this case. Great job. So moving on from that, we'll take a look at the trackpad. It's a very nice large trackpad for a 13-inch machine, taking a little bit of a page from Apple's book in that case, I guess, for HP, although they've been doing a little bit better job of that lately. Like Linus said in his video, HP's decision to use the Synaptics touchpad driver for this machine, like they did with the Spectre, they made the same choice here, instead of using the Windows Precision drivers, was a poor one, and it is noticeably not as nice of a trackpad because of that, although contrary to Linus's opinion, I think that this is still a perfectly serviceable trackpad, and will actually work just fine. It's just a little bit more picky about the way that you perform gestures and actions on it. The acceleration hasn't been a real big problem for me, although I have gotten fairly used to acceleration on trackpads, and most other people will scream bloody murder about them, so I don't know, that's something that may not be as well fit for the rest of you, but the other thing that Linus said negatively about this trackpad, or at least a fairly similar version of this trackpad that was used on the Spectre, is that there's the big dead zones on the on the trackpad at the edges, which I haven't noticed, actually. He said he noticed it almost immediately. I haven't noticed it on this machine. If it does exist, I wouldn't be too surprised that it does, but I guess just the way that I use my trackpad means that I haven't noticed that. So, yeah. Those are all considerations you may want to take into account if you were considering buying this machine. All that said, I have been very happy with this machine overall, so I have very few complaints except for the back panel on it getting so messed up from me doing the upgrade process, which could potentially be my own fault, although it's not as if I haven't done service repair stuff like that on even fairly fiddly laptops before without causing any problems with them. It is more of a case where it's just this machine that has caused me some problems, so I'm not sure what's up there. Maybe it is poor design, or maybe I was being a dork or something when I was doing the repair. I have no clue. And the other complaint I have being that the fan stays ramped up so often. But yeah, other than that, mostly everything else is pretty positive for me. The display is pretty great, in my opinion. It's a 1920 by 1080 panel with pretty good colors, decent brightness, in my opinion. This is all being asterisked with the "in my opinion" because I don't have any of the tools which would be necessary to do any of the color reproduction testing or measuring of the brightness of the display that more prominent YouTube tech people would. But let's go ahead and turn this machine on here, and I will hopefully be able to show you some of the performance statistics stuff with it, just in general use. It looks like it might be dead, so I might have to plug it in here. I'll get back to you guys once I have that done and I have it turned on and logged in. Okay, so getting this machine turned on has been a good reminder for me that there is an IR camera assembly just above the screen here, which is used for Windows Hello facial recognition on login, which works spectacularly and is a fantastic alternative to putting in a PIN or anything like that when you're logging in. And it works in the dark too, which is phenomenal. There is no fingerprint sensor, which is a bit unfortunate, but the fact that you pretty much have to be looking at the display when you're logging in means that it's not really a problem when you can have Windows Hello running. So yeah, there's that aspect of this. There's rather large bars at the top and bottom of this display, which unfortunately is a little bit behind the times, I guess, compared to a lot of other laptops. I don't mind it too much. I'm used to a 16 by 9 aspect ratio display, so the fact that we're adhering to that standard, I guess, is fine by me. So, yeah. So if we let's see if I have anything installed here that is decent for doing performance testing. Not really. Let me go ahead and get some stuff, and I will be right back. As I'm doing these downloads here to get some performance testing software, I thought it would be a potentially good opportunity to have you guys listen to the way that this fan sounds during normal operation. Hopefully I can get this to come across, but I'm going to set the camera down here next to the system, and hopefully you can hear that. So, yeah, I am working on getting Cinebench's new R20 benchmark for CPU testing, and I'm also going to get Unigen's Valley benchmark to do some stuff with the GPU, and once that stuff's all set up to go, I'll be back with you guys in just a minute. Okay, so here you can see I am running the new Cinebench, if my camera will focus, R20 benchmark here. This is a newer release of Cinebench, which is potentially more suited for running on higher-end systems with lots of multi-threading performance, which this system doesn't have a whole lot of. It is a 4-core, 8-thread machine, which is nothing to scoff at, really, but of course running at laptop kind of clock speeds means that it's not going to win any land speed records in terms of performance. I did one run through already, which wasn't completely fair to the machine because it was already running some other tasks when I started it. That gave me a preliminary score of right around 588 CB, which if we look at the way that that stacks up here to some much more powerful processors, puts it not in terms of or not in high regard in terms of performance, but if you flip through all these processors, I think you'll notice that pretty much all of them are desktop grade processors, except for the U processor here at the bottom, and then these two HQs from Intel, which are high performance quad core i7 models from the that looks like it's one from Haswell and one from Skylake. But you'll probably notice that it does at least perform better in than the Broadwell i5 here. But as I said, this wasn't really a fair test to the machine since it was already doing some other stuff at the time. I'm going to rerun this test. It takes a fair amount of time to run, and I will get back with you guys once that is done. Alright, so it looks like this second run here is just about to finish up, so we should be getting a result here any second. Remembering, I think that the last run gave us a score of 588? Yeah. We will see what comes out this time. 510! Oh boy, so it's gone down. Not sure why that would be, unless it's just a heat factor. Yeah, I guess I'll have to take the first score's word for it then. That's interesting. I've noticed over the course of this run that that fan hasn't been ramping up very high. It's been sitting pretty much at the same volume as what it sounded like before. If not, a little bit quieter. So I wonder if that has something to do with it, and if HP needs to work on their fan tuning a little bit in that case then. But with that said, I guess those are the scores that we'll take from that, and then let's go ahead now and take a look at Valley from Unigen. So the settings that I'm going to pick out here are probably going to be, you know, somewhere mid-range as far as what you would consider modern for today. So we'll probably go with high and stereo disabled, obviously, single monitor, anti-aliasing off, and we'll run it system resolution. That should be 1080p, so yeah, I'll go ahead and start running that, and then once that has begun running, I will run the system benchmark on it, which will just go through all of the scenes rendered and give us a score and an average frame rate across the whole thing, and then I will get back with you guys in just a minute. Okay, we are done running through that, and as you can see, the benchmark scores show that we had an average FPS of 5.4, minimum of 3.2, and a max of 8.8. Not even relatively playable. And I wanted to run this particular benchmark at this resolution just to show off that you're not going to be able to run high-end games at 1080p on this laptop. But I have every reason to believe that we will, running this at 1366 by 768, manage to get into the playable frame rates ranges of somewhere between 30 and 50. Unfortunately, not getting into that higher range of getting over the 60 FPS limit that this display is capable of showing, but you know, at least getting into the realm of playable. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to close out of Unigine. I'm going to rerun this benchmark one more time at 1366 by 768, and I will show you guys how those scores turn out. We'll see if I was right with my assumption or not. Well, I think I just got proven fairly wrong. I set this test to run at 1366 by 768, but for some reason this says it's running at 1280 by 720. Medium details, which means it should have been easier to run, and yet I have managed to only get an average FPS score of 14.3 with a max of 24.4 and a minimum of 7.9. So, what that's telling me is that, like I said before, this isn't going to run that many 3D games at you know, reasonable frame rates for you to want to play them on here. This is really more of a business class machine, although a bit higher end business class machine than it is a gaming machine. If we take a look at my games folder on here, I think you'll get the idea of the kind of games that you should be able to run pretty well on this kind of hardware. So there's on the left Celeste, that is an indie platformer game that is mostly 2D based, so it runs great. Fallout New Vegas, that's an older 3D game, it also runs great. The Binding of Isaac, Rebirth, runs great, again it's a 2D game. Minecraft has seemed to run just fine on it. Portal and Portal 2, both a little bit older games again, but they run great even at system resolution. So yeah, I guess to illustrate my point, you can't run that many games on here that are very demanding, but it is capable of doing more than just gaming. If I go ahead and grab something from out of my backpack here. So as I said, there was something that I wanted to grab from out of my bag, and that is this. An active stylus, which I wasn't aware any AMD machines were supporting at all, or that at least that OEMs at all were designing to work with their AMD-based systems. But as you can see, this machine works just fine with this stylus, and in fact, if I go over here to the Fresh Paint program, a free program that you can find on the Windows App Store that does a pretty good job of illustrating the compatibility with styluses on machines. This works pretty much as you would expect, with fairly low latency, and I mean, I don't know how much more there is to say about this. The whole machine is a 2-in-1, as you also probably could expect based on the way the hinge worked. So you can flip the thing all the way around. You can sit it down flat to use it like a tablet, you know, all the fairly normal 2-in-1 type things. I'm not sure how I brought up the print interface here, but we'll get rid of that. It's nice for like laying in bed and watching movies this way, basically. That is mostly what I use the 2-in-1 functionality for, unless I am busy working on another machine and I'm trying to troubleshoot something. It can be handy to just have this up next to me as a touchscreen interface to work on, you know, diagnosing problems and such. That's one other useful thing to use it in tablet mode for. And I guess it works okay trying to use Audacity like that, although I definitely don't edit in Audacity with the touchscreen mode. That sounds like an exercise in frustration. And one last note that I think I'll go over is, as many of you may have noticed going over the I/O on the system, there is no native display output on it, so I have gone ahead and gotten this Let's Com, not a sponsor, none of anything in any of my videos has ever been sponsored before. If you're interested in sponsoring me, let me know. I doubt anyone is. But yeah, this Let's Com USB Type-C adapter is something that I have gone ahead and picked up off of Amazon to help me with getting some extra I/O capabilities on this machine. So there's 3 more USB 3.1 Gen 1 ports. There's a full-sized and a micro SD card slot on here, nothing on the back. But then at the end here you'll see there is a full-sized HDMI port, which works just fine. So this is what I've been using with this machine when I need to get some more connectivity on it, and that seems to have been working rather well for me so far. Overall, I have a desktop to run my high-end software with, so I am experiencing very little frustration with this machine, being that it's, you know, for me, basically just a secondary usage type of thing. I hardly use it, in fact, unless I'm working on other projects. It's not been very much a useful entertainment device for me, except for, you know, the occasional times where I'm watching videos on it. With that, I think I will conclude my video on this HP laptop, and I will see you guys next time. I absolutely promise. I'm trying to come up with a hand gesture here to use to say that I promise. I promise, I pinky swear, sure, that the next video will be on my Compact Desk Pro. I promise it won't be as fragmented as this video probably has wound up being, because I will have somewhat more of an organized structure. Again, this is my first laptop thing that I've ever done, so I'm sure it's fairly scrambled. Yeah, so anyone who's looking forward to the Desk Pro video, if there are any of you out there, I'm getting to it. Let's do it. Next time. Next time, I promise. It will be the next video. There will be no other videos before that video. Okay. Thank you everyone for watching. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. If you enjoyed the content, I have lots of other videos that go over less scrambled ideas. If you liked the video, please throw a like on it, and I will talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.